Dr. David Callahan made just under $400,000 a year. He was an orthopedic surgeon. He drove a black Porsche. He lived in a 6,000 square foot house in one of the wealthiest suburbs outside Chicago. And both of his kids went to a private school that cost more per year than most people earn. To everyone who knew him, David had it all. By every visible measure, he was a man who had completely, undeniably made it. He died at 52, a heart attack, in the parking garage of the hospital at 6:40 on a Thursday morning between two scheduled surgeries. He never even made it inside. And 3 weeks later, his wife sat across a desk from a financial advisor and learned the truth David had spent 20 years hiding from everyone, including, in the quiet hours of the night, from himself. There was nothing. The enormous house was mortgaged to the ceiling. The Porsche was leased. The accounts held almost nothing. And underneath all of it sat a mountain of debt that took her breath away. David Callahan had earned close to $8 million over his career, and he died owing money. Now, here's what should stop you cold, right now, before you tell yourself, that could never be me. The exact thing that trapped David, that turned $400,000 a year into less than nothing, is running quietly in your life today, on your salary. You've just got less income to bury it under. So let me take you back to the day David thought he'd finally won, the day the money got big, and show you the exact moment the cage clicked shut around him while he was smiling wide enough to blind you. To understand David, you have to understand what he gave up to get there. 12 years. 4 years of medical school, 5 of residency, more of fellowship. His entire 20s and half his 30s spent exhausted, underpaid, and $300,000 in student debt. While his friends bought houses and took vacations, David slept in hospital call rooms. So when the first real paycheck finally landed, an attending surgeon's salary, more money in a month than he used to see in half a year, something in him exhaled. And a voice, a completely reasonable voice, said, "You earned this, every dollar of it. After everything you sacrificed, you get to enjoy it now." And so he did. The house came first, beautiful, in the right neighborhood, because a surgeon lives in a certain kind of place. Then the car, because a surgeon drives a certain kind of car. Then the club, the schools, the watch, the vacations that made up for all the ones he'd missed. And none of it felt like a mistake. Every single upgrade felt like a reward he had bled for. That's the part you have to understand. David was not reckless. David was being paid back, and he had 12 years of back pay to collect. But here's the thing about a bigger life. It doesn't just cost more once. It costs more every single month, forever. The house came with a mortgage that needed feeding. The lifestyle came with a burn rate that only ever climbed. And every time David's income went up, a busier year, a new bonus, the lifestyle quietly rose right along with it and swallowed the difference whole. He was making $400,000 a year and saving almost none of it, because the life he had built now required nearly every dollar just to keep standing. And that's when the cage clicked shut. Because somewhere around 45, David realized something he could never say out loud. He didn't love the job anymore. The hours were brutal. The malpractice fear was constant. The bureaucracy was crushing him. He fantasized about slowing down, about doing something, anything, with less weight on it. But he couldn't. He couldn't take a lower-paying job. He couldn't cut back his hours. He couldn't even breathe, because the entire structure of his life, the house, the schools, the cars, the image, was built on that exact income, and the moment it dropped, all of it came down. David wasn't rich. David was the highest-paid prisoner in the building. They call them golden handcuffs. They are still handcuffs. So he did the only thing the trap allowed. He worked more, not less, more. And now, here's the part that should rearrange something in your head. There was a nurse on David's surgical floor. Call her Karen. She made about $70,000 a year, less than a fifth of what David made. She drove a 9-year-old Honda. She lived in a modest house across town. And every month, without fail, she quietly put a piece of her paycheck away, into investments, into a life that was slowly, genuinely becoming free. By the math that actually matters, Karen was wealthier than the surgeon, not on paper, in reality. Because Karen had a gap, the space between what she earned and what she spent, and that gap was hers. It was building her something. David, earning nearly 6 times as much, had no gap at all. His was zero. Some months it was negative. And that is the secret that David's $400,000 salary hid from him for 20 years. Wealth was never the income. Wealth is the gap. It is the distance between what comes in and what goes out. And David, the richest man on the floor, had the smallest gap in the building. He had the highest income in every single room he ever walked into, and the least freedom of anyone there.
The stress had to go somewhere. It always does. It went into his chest, and his sleep, and his marriage, and the dinners he missed, and the kids who learned not to wait up. David kept telling himself it was temporary. A few more good years and he'd get ahead of it. He'd slow down. He'd finally start keeping some of it. Just not yet. Not this year. This year, the machine needed feeding. And on a gray Thursday morning in the hospital parking garage at 6:40, walking from a leased Porsche toward a building he'd grown to dread, David Callahan's heart simply stopped. 52 years old, between 2 surgeries. The machine he'd built to sustain his life had, in the end, quietly taken it. And everything he'd spent 20 years projecting, the wealth, the success, the man who had it all, turned out to be a set with nothing behind it. His wife didn't inherit a fortune. She inherited a mortgage, a pile of debt, and a lawn full of expensive things the bank was already coming for. The whole magnificent life had been, from the very beginning, held together with borrowed money and hope. Now, here's what I promised you. Here's why this should keep you up tonight. Because it's so easy to watch this and think, I'm not a surgeon, I don't make 400 grand. This isn't about me. It is entirely about you. Because you are running David's exact wiring right now on your income. Every time a raise shows up and 6 months later it's just gone, absorbed into a slightly nicer life you barely notice. Every time I earned this, I can afford it now, quietly turns a bigger paycheck into a bigger set of chains. Every time your spending rises to meet your income, dollar for dollar, so you feel just as stretched making more as you did making less. That's the trap, and it does not care what you earn. Lifestyle inflation will rise to swallow $40,000 exactly the way it swallowed $400,000. David just had more income to prove it with. You've got the same wiring. Yours is just running on a smaller number, which is the only reason it hasn't put you in a parking garage yet. Because here is the truth no salary will ever teach you. It is not what you make, it is what you keep. The gap between what comes in and what goes out. That gap is the only thing that was ever actually yours. And a man who keeps nothing is poor at absolutely any income. David Callahan spent his entire life earning the right to be trapped. He bought every symbol of freedom, the house, the car, the title everyone envied, and he paid for them with the one thing they were supposed to represent, the freedom itself. The most expensive thing David ever purchased was the appearance of a rich life, and he paid for it with the real one. So don't buy the look of wealth with the substance of it. Don't let the life rise to eat every dollar just because the dollars got bigger. Protect the gap. Guard it like it's the only thing you own, because quietly, it's the only thing that ever was. Subscribe, because there are far more of these than you would ever believe, and the next one might be the one you recognize in the mirror.